Welcome to the Your Courageous Life podcast, where we explore what it really means to transform fear, burnout, and perfectionism with the practice of courage. I'm Kate, author of the books 100% Fully Alive and The Courage Habit, creator of YourCourageousLife.com, and head of the CLCC Coach Training Program at TeamCLCC.com. If you're someone who feels deeply, thinks critically, and wants to stay grounded in a world that can feel like too much, then this is the podcast for you. Learn evidence-based and heart-centered tools to practice courage so that who you are on the inside becomes how you live, lead, and show up on the outside. And now, let's get into today's episode. Hello. So those of you who have been following along with the podcast for a while know that the previous few episodes, I have referenced the fact that my dad has recently passed and how challenging that has been. And there's been a dip in how often I've been producing episodes as a result because I am just navigating everything that goes along with that process, whether it be the grief or the paperwork. And let me tell you, when somebody dies, there's a lot of paperwork. And unbelievably to me, on some level, more stuff started to happen. It's feeling a little bit like the universe is hitting from all sides. And even me saying that out loud, it's feeling like the universe is hitting on all sides. I have an awareness that that's a narrative, a story. It's a negative story. It's a negative framing of the situation, but it has felt genuinely like a hard season. And when I say unbelievably, what I mean is that on top of the grief that I'm dealing with around, losing my dad, who was just such a great person, there's, been all the logistics and the paperwork. Oh my gosh, y'all. One of my dogs died. One of my dogs died in a really horrifying way. And I'm not going to get into the graphic details because that's not what you signed up for when you were listening today. But about a week ago, I was taking both of my dogs for a walk, and one of them was attacked by an aggressive dog and mauled and had to be euthanized. And this dog, I got to tell you, I love both of my dogs so much, but this dog in particular was a Velcro dog, meaning that she was constantly next to me. This is like every hour of every day. If I was home, she was next to me. If I walked into another room, she was next to me. If I went into the bathroom to go pee, she'd follow me. So the sadness that I feel about not having her presence in my life, on top of the sadness I felt in other areas, has been really hard. And that's what brings me to today's podcast episode, which is that I have noticed an uptick in negative thinking, an uptick in feeling like life has, or the universe or something karmic has it out for me right now. And what I know about being in that kind of space is that if I go too far or too long, really, without addressing that, it just starts to spiral out of control. It feels really hard to address it as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I'm doing during this incredibly hard season. And by the way, the dog dying, that's not even the total story. There are like 3 other tricky, sticky situations that I've got going on right now, totally separate from my dad or the dog. And that is why it's been really easy to just have my thought process go to, all right, what is going on? I'm feeling unfairly singled out by the universe in this moment. And so that actually brings me to the first thing that I want to say, which is understanding that the negative thinking never tells the whole truth. The negative thinking never tells the whole truth. I know that I've said in other podcast episodes this line that I often will say with my private one-on-one coaching clients, which is that the feelings of fear and self-doubt are really real, but they like to tell tall tales. And this negative thinking that I have noticed cropping up lately, it's really fueling my self-doubt. It's not helping that politically, globally, the world is having so much suffering and I'm an empath. And I wish that there was more that I could do to just flip a switch and fix those issues. And it feels sometimes very powerless to realize that I can't do that, and frustrating. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, take a moment, because I have never been inclined to be, and I don't think I ever will be, that life coach or mental health coach who's going to talk about any of this from a place of, you know what though, if you just think positive, everything's okay. No, like sometimes shitty, unfair things happen. Things that make no sense. Things like I'm out walking my dog and she was the most timid, scared of everything dog ever, not at all aggressive in any way, shape, or form. The sweetest little being, and now she's gone. She's just gone. And there's no sugarcoating this. There's no silver lining. There's no, well, like if somebody were to say to me right now, well, it's just good that you got the years you did with her. I would understand the intent from which that person is speaking. They're trying to offer comfort, but internally it would feel like bullshit. I don't want to hear that right now. What I want to hear right now is how it's just unfair that this happened. So understanding that the negative thinking never tells the whole truth, because the truth is that my life is, if I kind of zoom back, and so I'm encouraging you listening to this, if you're struggling with negative thinking and self-doubt, pull back to the bigger picture. Remind yourself that your life is about so much more than the crappy circumstances that life might have dealt you recently. So for instance, my life is about so much more than these recent tragedies. My life is also about the fact that I have a wonderful, loving husband, and that I love my kids so much. And thank God we're all healthy and we've got a roof over our heads. And there are things I want to do in the world creatively. And there are friends who I adore and I want to celebrate them. Next thing I'm going to say, though, is that even as you are understanding that the negative thinking never tells the whole truth, I don't think that it's very helpful to try to censor what you think, because you're a human, not a robot. And I, for one, am so fucking sick of this toxic positivity BS of trying to constantly push people out of what they somatically feel and into some kind of solution too fast. We are not robots. We are human. We are not just trying to arrive at a calculated, quote unquote, correct answer. This human experience is messy. Sometimes we experience things that are unfair. Sometimes we think things that are unfair. Sometimes we are going to be petty or judgmental, or we just want to be angry and we just want some space to feel that without feeling some kind of external pressure to hurry up and put a bow and some glitter on it. So one of the things that I'm doing while I am pulling in the context and understanding that the negative thinking never tells the whole truth is I'm also giving myself space to just say, this sucks. Giving myself space to just say, I'm so unhappy right now with the hand that I have been dealt. There's no meaning yet that I can cull from it. There's no silver lining that I have found for it. It's just hard. And sometimes in life, we are walking through seasons that are just hard, and there's no fix and there's no solution. And I think sometimes we even, or maybe I'll just speak for myself here, something I've noticed about myself lately in particular is how sometimes cognitively, I think I want a solution, but what I'm actually just wanting is to be heard, to have someone be with me in the shit sandwich of these circumstances, to have someone just be with me as I'm navigating what I'm navigating. It doesn't need to be made better. I don't have to use some fancy tool or framework or 1, 2, 3 step plan or hack. I'm just in it. I'm moving with it and I'm moving through it and I'm just in it, and there's no specific protocol to follow. So not censoring what you think could be something that is a huge permission slip for you around negative thinking and self-doubt and not getting pulled into that. Because it's almost like the energy that we can sometimes put into trying not to think anything negative becomes energy that almost holds that dynamic in place, if that makes sense. Maybe it could also be likened to engaging with, say, an online bully, and realizing that the more you engage with an online bully in the comments, the more they come back with more comments. And so, hey, maybe if you're just like, you know what, I'm just not really even engaging with this. It is what it is. This online bully is just saying what they're going to say. Oh, well, okay. And by the way, if any of you are listening to this and you ever stress about online bullies, I swear the best thing to respond when people are making these like troll comments is just to say something like, thank you so much for your engagement with my content. It really helps the algorithms push it out so that more people can see it, which is actually true. So it's amazing how many times I've said that and then the person stops commenting. They just stop with the online trolling. So just pro tip there in case anybody's wondering about how to navigate the mean streets of social media. Next thing though, because this is a balance, like let me kind of recap and pull it all together here. There's understanding that the negative thinking is not telling you the whole truth. There's also not trying to put a leash on the negative thinking. And at the same time, one of the things that I am doing now and again, because I really just feel like I'm moving through and with, and there's a lot of brain fog I've come to discover that comes with grief. But the next thing is try to notice patterns. Try to notice patterns. Now, I try to notice patterns from a couple different places. One is I'm trying to do it from a place of self-awareness. Like if there was a pattern in my life where multiple people were coming to me and saying, Kate, you're being a jerk. I don't want to lack self-awareness. I want to have enough self-awareness to look around and go, gee, by the time 5 people have approached me and said, Kate, you're being kind of a jerk, I think I'm the common denominator here and I need to look at that. If I am being the agent of my own suffering through some kind of unhelpful behavior, and certainly if I was in this example, if people were coming to me and saying I was being a jerk, which thankfully has not happened, but certainly if I was doing that, I would want to look at that and not be a jerk. So trying to notice patterns, it comes from a place of self-awareness and wanting to say to yourself, okay, things are feeling really negative. My self-doubt is really loud. My fear is really loud. Is it possible that I'm the common denominator here? Am I making choices that just keep ending me up in the same place? Another reason to start noticing patterns is to try to see if there's a lesson in there somewhere. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself because earlier I think I made a comment along the lines of, you might not have a lesson. There's not a lesson always. I do believe that that's true. I really do. But at the same time, a good amount of the time there is a lesson. A good amount of the time there is something to learn from a situation. And I think that it's worth asking yourself, what's the pattern here? What do all of these situations have in common? When it feels like 5 different things have gone wrong in my life, what do all of these situations have in common? Now, if it is helpful for you, I will just offer this. And I don't feel like this is like a toxic positivity thing. I think that this is legitimately something I've observed in many years of working with one-on-one clients. When many, many things all start to go wrong at the same time, one of the things I've noticed with my clients, you can't see it in the moment, but later you realize a bunch of stuff was being cleared away. And of all the shit sandwiches that I think we eat in life, that's one of the hardest ones. Because when things are being cleared away and it's rapid fire and it's one thing after another and it's not just one tragedy, but it's 5 of them and they're all coming relatively back to back, it sends shockwaves through your entire system. It is really, really hard to navigate that. And so, given that truth, given that, or I'll say possibility instead of truth, because maybe it's not what's happening for you right now, but given that possibility, it is something that brings me at least a little bit of comfort. That maybe something about the different things that are going wrong in my own life lately are all pointing to some next step that I'm about to take. The decks are being cleared. Again, though, I am not pushing for any toxic positivity here. I really, again, do not understand why my incredible like soul dog here had to be one of the things that would go. And I'm trying to come into more and more acceptance of that. And you can probably hear it in what I'm saying. I'm arguing with myself a lot these days because I'll try to reach for this idea that maybe there's some kind of reason behind everything. And then another part of me is just like, fuck that. No way. This is no good. No bueno. No mas. So trying to notice the patterns I think is helpful for your self-awareness, for any possible things that you might be learning, or for even noticing that you could be on the cusp of a lot of things breaking down that needed to break to essentially force you into the position of creating something new. But I will never undermine the pain and the hurt and the challenge that comes with when that happens in life. Last thing I'll say about this negative thinking and self-doubt. I've really been trying to think about what is within the circle of my control. And I don't always know that positive or negative thinking is within the circle of one's control. I think a lot of times it is, and there are times where you can be so dysregulated or a situation can be traumatizing in such a way that you don't really have control of those thoughts. And I'm saying that in part because, like I said, I was taking a walk with my dog when she was mauled, meaning I saw what happened. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was traumatizing for me. And there has been rumination and what if thinking and flashes of seeing graphic images that I can't unsee right now. I'm not a firing on all cylinders, 100% got her shit together girl in this moment around my own experience of all this. And so what I'm really trying to do during a time when I notice that there are so many things that are out of my control is I'm trying to lean into the things that are. So for instance, sleep is not totally within my control right now. The stress of the grief and everything like that has disrupted sleep. But I can control what time I start my wind down routine at the end of the night, what time I go to bed, things of that nature. Eating well. Sometimes my appetite has been wonky as I've navigated grief. But at the very least, I can eat as well as I can when I do eat. That is something within my control. Exercise. I don't feel like showing up for the gym right now. I don't feel like it. But I also recognize that the exercise is actually something that in the aggregate does help me even when I don't feel like it. Mindfulness. I meditate every single morning. At this point, I have a daily streak that is thousands of days of a streak. I've been meditating almost every day since 2018, and my current streak, I think it's 5 years. I can't remember, 4 or 5. I don't remember. Anyway, I do have a streak. And if you want to meditate with me, by the way, head over to Insight Timer, get the free Insight Timer app. No, this is not an ad. I'm literally a teacher for Insight Timer, and I am a user of Insight Timer. And so I'm sharing it with you because it's a free resource. And what I would say is that in terms of my mindfulness practice right now, it also feels like it's in the don't wanna bin. It also feels like it's a mindfulness really, but I do it because, again, I know that the things that are going to keep me anchored right now are going to be things like getting sleep, getting exercise, eating well, and mindfulness. And there's a way in which, as I say all of that out loud, I can almost imagine a listener who's having a really hard time and maybe they're thinking to themselves that I sound like a goody two-shoes. And hey, fair, but it did take me a long time to dial in a lot of those habits. They are hard to dial in. Maybe that's your project right now. Maybe like trying to figure out how to be crazy joyful is not your project right now. Maybe it's just, hey, all I need to do right now is like stable sleep and wake times, regular exercise, getting a vegetable, and taking a few moments to breathe each day. Maybe that needs to be the thing that you're focused on right now at a time when everything feels like it's falling apart and the negative thinking is really creeping in. Now, all that having been said and done, I am a fan of reframing, and there is plenty of content over at yourcourageouslife.com. And if you follow me on social media, I talk about reframing and I give examples of reframing. I'm not going to go into that as much now, because what I really think I'm getting at throughout this entire podcast episode is that there's a nurturing that we need to give ourselves when things are falling apart that is at the root of how we handle the negative thinking and the self-doubt. Meaning that what my heart needs right now is both the perspective that this is not all there is and the perspective that I feel messy and feral and sad and all sorts of different things, and that I don't need to clamp down on that and censor it. What my heart needs right now is both looking at this situation and trying to understand it, but without feeling like I have to arrive at an answer. What my heart needs right now is connection and care and friends reminding me that I'm not in this alone, or that I'm not a bad person who has deserved these things to happen. And what I'm needing right now is care for my body, which is why I keep talking about sleep and exercise and all of that good stuff. These are all component parts of what someone needs when things are falling apart and the negative talk and the self-doubt is just getting so loud. Last, I just want to leave you with really and truly believing that somehow, some way, you will find your footing again. And that's a statement that I believe I can make really as a result of age. I'm in my mid-40s, and at this point, I have seen my life fall apart and come back together enough times that I actually think I'm starting to have a bedrock of faith that whatever is thrown my way, somehow, some way, it's going to follow a predictable pattern, but somehow, some way, I will find my way back. And that predictable pattern often starts as this incredible shock and a feeling of betrayal by life, by others, a sense of how unfair it is, a mishmash of wild, feral anger. There might be panic. There might be grappling and a sort of feeling of desperation for anything to get the ground under your feet again. And then after enough time, really facing what it is that you're facing. And when I say that, I mean things like really sitting with the fact that my dad is gone, that my dog is gone, that these different other, 5 things that I didn't want to get into in this podcast are all happening, and that I don't like them and I don't want to be dealing with them. But there's something about facing them, journaling about them, crying about what's coming up, even allowing myself to feel some anger about what's coming up, that is bringing me to a greater place of acceptance, that is what happened. I can't go back into the past and change it. I can't change other people's perceptions. I can't change what happened on the dog walk. And instead of that feeling devastating that I can't change it, it's starting to feel more just like, okay, so that happened. Maybe just for 5 minutes, I can accept that happened. And again, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of other periods in my day where I cannot accept that a certain thing happened. But I do have a bedrock of faith that I will get through. And I do have a bedrock of faith that you will get through. Again, this situation is not everything. The negative thinking, the self-doubt, they're never telling the whole truth about your life. And I will leave you with this one last thought, which is that in life, we are always encountering setbacks. And what actually matters more than any of your setbacks, any of your failures, any of your mistakes, any of your life dealt you a really shitty set of circumstances is your comeback. And your comeback can be slow, and it can be on your own pace, and it can look messy, and all of that is okay. But the comeback matters more than the setback. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Before you go, would you take just one moment to give a rating in whatever podcast app you're listening in right now? It's a tiny action that helps to get this podcast out to more people. And I've got more for you. You can get access to free resources, audios, worksheets, and more for practicing courage in your everyday life. Head over to yourcourageouslife.com and become a subscriber, and you'll get access to an entire library of free courageous resources. And if you've ever thought about becoming a coach, or if you want to bring deeper presence and purpose to your work life so that corporate job doesn't feel quite so soul-sucking, check out the CLCC Coach Training Program at teamclcc.com. Thank you again for listening, and I hope that whatever today brings, you meet it with courage.